There we go.
Stream is live.
Oh, we're live. What happened? It's like we
got really zoomed in.
I always get so turned around with this. Like is anyone else dizzy? Okay, there we go. Hi. What happened? Why can't I okay, I need to move over here. That's what it is. I have to move like away from my computer, like uncentered to be centered. All right. Let me just do that thing really quick where I make sure that we're live.
Yep.
Because that is...
I know. If you're seeing this, pop in the chat so we don't have to make Devin run around to a bunch of different places.
Life is hard, y'all, okay? Ooh, yeah, we are there. Okay, great. And then let me just make sure... YouTube's always the one that doesn't super work. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm technically uninclined. Okay, it says we're live. Great. Wow, we did it. After all this time, we finally figured it out.
This has been the most seamless one so far, Devin. So kudos. But maybe George is sprinkling a little operations, logistics, magical powder on us.
Hey, Luke. Yay. Okay. Hi, Luke. I was about to type hi, Luke, and I'm like, I'm talking to you right now. So that's unnecessary. Anyway, hi, everyone. This is our friend, George Chasiotis. He runs a content agency called Minutia. And you probably know, if you're in the Super Path group, you probably know him because he's done a bunch of stuff with Jimmy there. I've known George for years. I've known him so long that I don't know how I know him. It was just, I think, the agency space that we found each other when I was at Animals, I think. And he is one of the things that blew me away about him from the get-go. I'm going to make you embarrassed, George, because I actually know that you don't love compliments, but really, really high integrity person who, and that like bled into his agency. Like we really bonded over our principles around doing great work, running a good company, being truly helpful and not fake helpful. So, thanks, Shelly. So anyway, George, welcome. This is your debut on the podcast. I want you to know that so many people send us emails being like, do you want us to be on their show? And I say no to all of them. And then I'm like, hey, will you come on our show?
It's very good to be here. And let me just say that when you were at Animals, I was listening to podcasts you were doing, and anything that you said really, that you were saying really, because I wanted to like uncover the secrets. How is he doing it? I mean, how did he took this agency from X and he took it to, I don't know, 3X or something? I need to see what's there. So I think that the relationship started with admiration on my end and a bit of envy as well. Like how did Devin do that? But obviously, when I met you, I understood that you did it because you're amazing and you're awesome, and you're also a great person. So
I love compliments, so especially today. So this is great.
Devin's like, and what else?
Yeah. Thank you, George. So we wanted to talk to you because this is actually kind of contrary to the whole premise of our show. You have a new sort of perspective on content marketing strategy, and it has a name. And normally, Margaret and I would reject naming anything in marketing with a term. But in this case, I thought it was kind of like the concept of it was spot on for the times, which is adaptive content marketing. So I think let's like tell people what that is first so that they have the context for the rest of our conversation.
So I think that the term is timely, right? And it's not about the term. It's about what the term represents really and what the term is trying to describe, right? I think that we should start by trying to map out or share an overview with people. Many of these things may be things that people experience and think about and feel already. Still, I think it's important to understand where we are at and how we came here to understand why adaptive content marketing is the path forward, right? So a quick overview as a way to kick this conversation of we experience in many industries, right? I don't want to overgeneralize, but I will choose SaaS companies and tech companies more broadly for simplicity purposes. And so we experience, and people working in these companies experience financial uncertainty. Things are shifting towards sustainable growth and profitability, whereas in the previous ZIRP, zero interest rate policy era, things were characterized by acceleration and growth at all costs. Budgets in some cases, in certain cases, are more limited, let's say, and there is a very high ROI scrutiny. Okay, this is why you see things like what we call glorification of content marketing, which kills creativity and is not the most healthy way to approach content marketing. Still, it happens. Also, we notice hiring freeze and a trend towards outsourcing more. Either people like it or not, it's happening, right? And companies went from a from a generally optimistic view over the future to okay, we've got to work with what we have at our disposal, limited budgets. I have to be more careful about explaining what we will be doing with contractors or with my team, and I have to plan for this quarter because I need to hit my goals this quarter, right? Now, on top of all this, you have to add AI, and AI, at least as I see it, for the time being, affects our industry on a perceptual level, right? Because it changes the perception of how content should be made, how much it should cost, even more mundane things such as what should be the turnaround time for a piece of content, and how fast can I spin out content, right? And as an extension, it's powered by AI. The upcoming changes, or the changes really, because they are in effect in search, which obviously affect us and give us offer us some sleepless nights. Why? Because unfortunately, content marketers did a great job. We did a great job at equating our job with search, and thus whatever happens with search and in search is important. And also because content marketers, we as an industry, we did a great job at focusing on easy to replicate, low barrier to entry strategies and tactics that AI or similar quality services can match. Okay, so you have a very complicated environment. On top of that, you have AI and changes in search, and all that bring us to this I guess live stream, and the fact we feel that we need to discuss these things, and also kind of pushed us internally to say that what, things are getting weird, and we have to find a new way forward, right, for all of us. That was a very long intro.
No, I love things are getting weird. That's a good encapsulation of everything that's going on. But I love how you broke that down too. It does feel like the convergence of all of these different things that have made it really weird right now, and made it so that we can't rely on the things that we were relying on in the past decade or so.
Yeah, and also
this
like
name
I
doesn't
think in the
stick.
past when we've seen these big changes in, like when content marketing was coming to life as a strategy for growing SaaS startups, it's like it felt like we were in a world of opportunity, and the difference now is I'm not sensing that same sentiment. It feels like there's a lot of fear and anxiety, rather than like, ooh, how can I, like, I'm surprised the growth hackers haven't come back and been like, how can I temporarily capitalize on this like 2-month window when Google made this one update and revealed this like tiny thing that said, whatever. It's like we're like almost ducking and covering across the industry, even among marketers. And it's weird.
Yeah, but George, it almost sounds like adaptive content marketing is a way that we can manage the anxiety over the fact of all these things are changing and build a program and teams that can respond to this. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that same sentiment of like everyone's, instead of feeling like this is a time to play and to capitalize on opportunities, do you feel that same sentiment? And then also, how does adaptive content marketing kind of help solve that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that every sort of crisis, even though that's a strong word, but let's call it a crisis, is an opportunity, right? And the reason why concepts like adaptive content marketing exist is they are the ante to something that's well established, right? So in order to kind of outline what adaptive content marketing is all about, we have to make a comparison and present adaptive content marketing as the ante of what's been established so far, which is the old content marketing playbook, right? And so the old content marketing playbook is characterized by things like, it was, and it is, because it's still in play, blog first and text first. Content people or professionals, however you want to call them, are content writers. Mostly when it comes to performance measurement, we had last touch attribution as a vehicle for trying to understand what's working and what's not working. Promotion was and is really achieved mainly through owned media. For example, email newsletter, the company's social media outlets, and so on. When it comes to things like getting brand mentions and links, backlinks, it was mainly transactional, right? And we had things like link exchanges and paying for links and so on. Outsourcing in many cases was treated as a last resort, depending on how allergic the company is to outsourcing staff. At the same time, these strategies and this playbook is for the most part risk averse and let's play it safe. This is why we ended up with, especially for SaaS companies, the standard playbook. Let's create these alternative pieces, these comparison guides, these software listicles, and call it a day, right? It's characterized by content optimization and tools that pushed us to essentially copy what the top results on search were doing. Conversion optimization is not really a thing because we are mainly interested in and focus on the output, which is this piece of content, we publish this X piece of content, and so on. So we are not really interested in the outcome, which is, okay, great about those pieces. It's great that we got them live. What have they generated for us, right? And at the same time, something that hopefully will change moving forward as we move to this new content marketing playbook. Employees and creators are not leveraged, right? And you start to see a change here because some companies understand that employee advocacy is really a channel of its own, right? And they have to build internal, personalities and personas who will represent them out there. And creators, you see that this is somehow changing because with the rise of tools like Passion Fruit, companies can launch campaigns and find creators to amplify their message, right? So this is the old content marketing playbook. And so again, going back to how I started this thought, adaptive content marketing should come as the ante to that, right? And so adaptive content marketing is channel agnostic and multimedia, right? It shouldn't be that blog first and text first. That should change. Content professionals are not merely content writers, right? And I say that to our team as well, that if you characterize yourself as, or if you call yourself as a content writer, that's not a good, role to have, because the barrier to entry is very low, and unfortunately we don't compete against what we traditionally thought we are competing against, like other agencies or freelancers in certain cases, or in-house employees. We're competing against AI, right? So content professionals should be content marketers first, right? They should not just create the piece, but they should think about distribution first, and how I will create content based on the different distribution avenues that are available to me, or that I can create, right? Attribution is not last touch. In fact, it can be. It should be flexible and also channel specific, because let's face it, even though there are tools that claim that, there's no gray areas with our tool and you can measure everything. I mean, come on, everyone knows that this is not true, right? And also you have to think about the channel itself, because there are so many things that happen on Slack communities, for example, right? That are enough to affect, to form decisions on behalf of the buyers, right? How can you attribute that to any one channel, right? Promotion is done through both owned media and earned media. And what I want to say about promotion is the fact that companies are mainly using owned media as a channel for distributing their content is mainly due to the fact that the content itself is not up to the standards of any one channel. Like I've seen companies distributing their alternative listicles on LinkedIn. Why should you do that? I mean, besides the brand implications, who is going to interact with that? But the problem is that we relied on search for so long, and search, unfortunately, is a channel for average. It's a channel that rewards, in fact, average. And the feedback you get is not instant. If you share something on LinkedIn or Twitter, you get instant feedback, and if it's not good, people are not going to engage with it, right? And so I think that as we do more interesting things and be hopefully more creative with content marketing, we will be able to inevitably leverage other distribution channels, right, which may not be available to us right now. Then link exchanges and transactional link building is being replaced by digital PR. When it comes to outsourcing, once again, this is what we see. Companies keep strategic roles internally, and they outsource as much as they can. I mean, let's face it, the costs of and the economics of maintaining an internal content marketing operation, no offense to in-house content marketers, doesn't make sense anymore, right? So I see that, I think, and I hope really, because this is how, this part of my, this is how I support my lifestyle, that companies will continue outsourcing more and more. Then we discussed the fact that the old content marketing playbook is all about being risk averse and play it safe, alternatives, comparisons, software listicles, this kind of stuff. Whereas I think that this is the time to take calculated risks and bets. In fact, you have to start thinking about creativity and doing things differently. That's not to say that you shouldn't do these alternatives. You should do them, right? But your content marketing program should go way beyond those alternatives, right?
George, I think you just literally outlined the last many seasons of our podcast.
Our whole podcast.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
No, this is amazing. I'm
In a
saying like
good way.
it's exactly how we think. Like we've touched on all of these topics. I feel like this is like the culmination of our podcast is all of these different things that you're talking about right now.
I feel very
Yeah.
seen right now. It's amazing. It also, the thing you talk about outsourcing, George, really speaks to me because I've been surprised over the past 2 years how there isn't the same correlation between loss of headcount and hiring outsourced agencies or freelancers for help at the company. It didn't happen as kind of one-to-one as it did during the pandemic. And, part of me was like, well, there's just more content, specifically content agencies than there's more freelancers on the market because they got laid off from their jobs. And so it could be a matter of like, there's more competition, but I think this is like the best time ever kind of to work with an external partner because they can help you leverage AI in a smart way. They can help you, you know, uh, think about what an alternative campaign looks like, and maybe help you see that, like, I don't know, paid media is not bad. Like, just because you pay for it doesn't mean it's like, I don't know. I feel like content marketers got so precious about that. They're like, oh no, like we can't do. It's like, well, it works. So, and I know it's more complicated than that. I have a client who trades in paid media, and I get it, but it's like also there's a lot of back end work that gets done to help you organize your organize the customer journey in your tools and your automation tools that is actually can be beneficial for your organic content too. And so, like, speaking of adaptive, I'm like, could content marketing doesn't, to me, an effective content marketing strategy is not necessarily purely organic at all times.
I agree, and in fact, you were the one who helped me see this through a different lens, right? And I also think that as I see it, paid social is a great way to amplify your message, right? So why wouldn't you leverage it? Now, speaking of in-house teams and like outsourcing, I think there is a preconceived notion here and sort of a bias. Once again, no offense to people working, in-house, but
you can offend, George. We offend all the time.
yeah, but the thing is that what we hear very often, unfortunately, is that, you know what, we will handle this thought leadership. Let's, have a cigar and drink a whiskey, this very high level and deep topics internally. And all the creative stuff, we will handle them because we work at this company for 3 months and we know the product much better than you do. And you guys, you are for the SEO content stuff. The problem with this, there are many problems with this, but the main problem with this, the core problem, is that on the one hand, people working in house, they say that, but they are so pressed for time and also results and all these things that we outlined so far, that they, at the end of the day, they don't do it. So why wouldn't you want to have an execution partner for these kinds of stuff? This is why with our clients, we won't charge them for that, right? We will go, I'm talking about long-term clients obviously, but we will go with suggestions and recommendations on additional things we could do, how we could approach social, for example, or how we could do this piece of content for the blog, and so on, right? Once again, the problem is that most in-house content marketers think that, what, this is our job. Your job is to handle the easy stuff. And at the end of the day, this ends up being no one's job, because guess what? They are not doing it. Not because they don't know how to do it, but because, if you have to report on results at the end of the quarter, who gives a crap about being more creative on social media like SEMrush do?
A really
right?
good
So,
point.
yeah.
that's a really like the time constraint that everybody is up against.
I also think that's a good point of like, there's a little bit of this, which is like internal psychology of like what you can place on an external resource. And I always think this is very funny where like I can say things now as an advisor and as a consultant that I would say the same thing in-house and no one would listen to me. And it's almost like sometimes you have to bring in a third party to like just say the thing that you've been meaning. But I also think about it in terms of like risk and blame, which is like, where do we put the risk and blame? Do we keep it internally or do we put it externally? And I think this is wrapped up into, we were talking about how now there's so much more demand for reporting on ROI of and very like bottom of the funnel ROI in terms of content marketing. And so then the in-house team, if they're the ones that are like, oh, and we'll take like the brandy, thought leadershipy, creative stuff, it's like all that does is put their neck on the line to say like the in-house, like I'm going to be creative and take all the risk and I'm going to outsource all the stuff that I kind of know is going to work. Like that's a weird thing. So it's easy for them, the anxiety of that to be like, okay, and we're just going to deprioritize that project because like I don't want to be the one that's sticking my neck out, you know?
That's a good point. They can put the risk to us. We feel very comfortable with it, right? So
yeah. I think there was another oh boy, I just had one of those like thoughts that came together and then immediately evaporated. But it was about the in-house marketer struggle because because I think too, like we forget about, I'm going to say this messy because I lost the like beautiful version of it,
I'll
but it's
clean
like,
it up for you.
thank you.
Give me the raw product.
Yeah. So like there isn't just, I think that oftentimes, Margaret, you and I, when we talk, we get caught into like the size teams we're used to operating in. And we forget that there are marketing teams of much larger sizes that are experiencing this a little bit differently. And, you know, like I see this through my clients, right? And talking to their customers. And it's like, oh, there's a different case of like, you have resources. You are allowed to hire an agency. But then there's a whole other set of challenges that come in terms of execution, right? Where you often hear like, this is our ideal timeline, but we're really slow. Like we're not going to be able to get to this in time. And like having that acknowledgement of like, yes, we are going to be the contributor slowing things down. But at the same time, that doesn't always stick for long enough for you to show like those external folks to show results, right? Which is why I think like being a freelancer or a consultant is a really like, it's an easier job right now because the expectations or like your purview is so much smaller that it's like, you're not stuck with that kind of the same type of accountability around like tangible object on a shelf deliveries. And I don't know, I like, it's not a clean thought, but it's like, I just see this like scattered mindset where people are just like changing their minds constantly. And you're like, a week ago, we were on the same page. Like what happened?
And you mean internally in a company, like that there's so much thrashiness that they can't stick with a strategy long enough to have a external resource execute against it for enough time to have any results.
Or you're sticking with it, but like the problems that they're not like the problems kind of remain, right? Where it's like there's a block in some way. Maybe on the client side, right? Something about like a resource or whatever. Or like what I've seen too recently is like a strategy that a company will look at and be like, or sorry, an objective that an agency will look at and be like, oh, this isn't achievable, or like, given your circumstances, we can't fully execute on this. And it's just like, we need to just do this. Like, that's kind of the mandate that they have. And so in a way, this is the messiest thing. You'll clean it up, I swear. And I'm almost done. But it's like, in a way, it's like everybody's feeling the same kind of pressure in different ways, right? Big company, like small company, huge company. And it's causing chaos. It just looks a little different, but it's the same thing. Did I just say nothing?
No, I think it comes back to that earlier conversation that we were having around like the fact of everything's changing right now. And instead of people having this underlying feeling of excitement and possibility, everyone is feeling risk averse. Everyone's like, I don't know what to do. And so I think that manifests itself in internal blockages, because whether or not we want to believe it or not, a lot of times like things that are like, somebody blocked this article from being published because they haven't had time to review it. A lot of that is actually stemmed from anxiety, right? Like, what if I review it and I publish it, I let it go publish, and then, I get in trouble for the thing. So I think anxiety stops you from action. And I think that's what you're talking about right now, is like everywhere you're looking, there's almost like a blockage in action, when right now it's probably that we should be more action oriented and experimental than ever before.
Yeah. Yes. What that said, and how that relates to adaptive content marketing. And I'm not forcing this. This was where the thought was supposed to tie together. Is like, nobody wants your adaptive content marketing strategy because they're too scared to do it, even though that's exactly what they should be doing right now. Everyone is reverting to the things that make them feel safe. And they don't realize that what they need to be doing is adapting and going into the wide world of uncertainty and, trying different stuff to see what works for them.
I agree.
Mic drop. Speaking the same language. Do you feel that way though, George? I think Devin might have put words into your mouth that everyone's scared and adverse to this. Or as you've been starting to talk about this with clients and prospective clients and people in the community, are people glomming onto this? Do people feel excited by it, or do you feel the hesitation that Devin was alluding to?
Yeah, and unfortunately, you see that it has many different expressions, right? From the fact that you will hear things like, it took us 3 days to edit this to review and edit this article. And like, if it takes you 3 days to review and edit this article, I mean, you are not Forbes, right? You are not even Forbes.
Their content sucks.
I don't expect them to have such a like robust or in-depth editorial process. I mean, really? First of all, let's take a step back. Who's going to read the whole blog post? Who is going to read the whole blog post? So why would you spend 3 freaking days instead of saying, okay, like, what else can we do, right? What else can I do to contribute in a creative but the problem is that people are stuck in the past just because they feel comfortable, and this is what they know, right? Essentially, you're taking away from them something that they know and feels comfortable, because it feels more comfortable spending 3 days editing a piece of content that people are going to visit if it, let's say, meets,
if all goes well,
its objectives. Yes, but no one's going to read it like from start to finish. And instead of like, it's more comfortable to do that than to get uncomfortable and say, okay, what else is out there for me and for us, right? And unfortunately, I see this stubbornness and resistance to change at a time when, everything is at stake. Because I think that content marketers haven't really understood what's going on here, which is, I don't want to become too dramatic or like deterministic about how things will.
You love drama.
I'm Greek, so yeah, I'll take it. I like a bit drama in my life, but yeah, I don't think people understand what's at stake. So they prefer like sticking with what they know. Once again, there are many expressions to that, from very high level strategic stuff. We will keep, publishing just blog posts and nothing more and text only. good luck with that long term, right? To all the like nitty gritty, such as, you know, like having editorial processes that don't really make sense, right?
The thing that I've seen be the blockage too in a lot of different organizations is if somebody higher up that's actually setting goals, KPIs, measurement isn't on board, right? Like what gets measured gets managed. And so if we don't change the measurement at the management and executive level, nobody down below is going to feel comfortable enough to take those risks, right? If we don't really look at like, okay, if we're only measuring blog page views as a source of an indication that this is working, nobody's going to say, hey, do we really need to do a blog post, or would this better be served as an additional piece of content in a different distribution source, right? And so I think that's a lot of the place where the blockage comes from, is if the measurements and KPIs are set at a level that anyone underneath it doesn't have the ability to go off and fly. They're going to just go do the same thing. Oh, you want page views on a blog post? I'll keep writing blog posts. I'll keep trying to optimize for SEO. I'll keep trying to do this old playbook. I'll get some backlinks and I'll, whatnot. And so I think that is a piece of it where like, and that can be really difficult with like the executive layer of getting buy-in on going off into a new direction of experimentation.
I really think I'm gonna get canceled for this. I think we created the situation we're in by making a bunch of bad content marketers, because everybody, like all the all of these tools, marketing automation tools and influencers, like they came to life through the lens of a playbook. And they kept teaching versions of the same playbook over and over and over again. And they made it possible for you to not really have to think or be creative as a content marketer, because at the same time, we had all these tools that made everything more measurable, right? And so we get to to your point, like the metrics got so specific that it was like, do this to get that. And so now we're in a time where we need creatives. Like I just posted about this like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, the world needs creatives to move forward right now more than anybody else. But we don't have that many in our industry because it's ruled by product experienced and money experience. Like those are the people at the top, right? And so they really care about numbers and metrics. That's what gets passed down. These playbooks get created to support it. People want to make money. And so they start creating playbooks of their own and selling all these courses, when really we're just teaching people how to do, we're teaching people factory work and not true creative work, not true innovation or anything like that. And it's coming to a head. And I think that the folks that are like brave, that are, willing to feel uncomfortable, willing to have hard conversations at their company and take risks and say like, you know what I mean? Not just duck and cover for their job, but be like, listen, I believe this is what we need to do. And, whatever. I think those are the people in companies that are going to do better.
This is a little tangential, but there's this like meme. I don't even know if it's a meme going around. It's like a quote of a woman that was featured on some news or article. And her quote was, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so I can write and create art. I don't want AI creating art so I have to do more dishes, But I think, obviously AI is not going to do your dishes, but I think like the place of where we put it is also can be demoralizing for creatives if we say like, hey, let's have the technology do the fun stuff, right? And then you have to do all the other stuff. That can be demoralizing too.
Yeah. I don't know, George, what do you think? Or feel free not to answer, because I basically baited you into a hot take, so you don't have to answer. If you don't.
Your hot take is what? That content marketers are stuck in the old lazy ways?
That they were never, a lot of them, there's a whole generation that weren't ever good in the first place. Yeah. Because all they were ever trained on were like, we take for granted that we grew up in a time when there were no playbooks back then. And so it's like, we grew up having to think for ourselves and having to like make shit up constantly. Like that is my entire career. But we have a whole generation of people. You've seen it in the workplace too, where they're like, well, do you have a process for this? There's no process for this. So I didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh my God, that was your training from the very beginning. So I don't know. George, what do you think?
I think that we used traffic, and more specifically organic traffic, as a vehicle for performance measurement for a while. And if you take that away from content marketers who are not used to, going beyond that for, getting results for the companies they work at. And results, by the way, I will put an asterisk next to the word, because results could be traffic, but it could also be that we help the brand in a meaningful way, right? Add brand value and whatnot. But the thing is that, going back to what I said earlier about equating our work with like organic search, and we use traffic as a vehicle, which is okay, but up to a certain point, right? I think that the problem now is that, people feel insecure because you take it away from them, right? And I mean, as I explained earlier, I mean, let's face it, it's not like, especially organic search, which is what most content marketers, believe it or not, are doing and are focusing on, regardless of how sophisticated they act on LinkedIn, they report on traffic. I can tell you that. But the problem is that if you take it away from them, then what's left. And organic search and creating content that ranks highly on SERPs and so on doesn't require as much of creativity. As I mentioned earlier, it's a channel for average, and so it rewards. In fact, it rewards average. You don't have to be exceptional to get results there. And maybe this send the wrong signal to people, and basically tell them that if you can do that and drive this traffic, which is the vehicle for performance measurement, well, then you are good at what you do, right? And I think, going back to your point, we can get canceled together on this, but maybe that allowed people who shouldn't really be considered as content marketers to keep working in this industry, and more creative people to I don't know what's the right word here, but not have as prominent of a role in content marketing within an organization, right?
I think that's really interesting. I'm always thinking about like how things get settled, and how like when you get a reward, how it like rewarding behavior, and then how that changes. And I think that's a really interesting point that you made, which if search favors the average, and now we're like, there's just a bunch of average content marketers out there, it's like, well, yeah, it's a bunch of people that were focusing on search and realize that like you can be great by being average. And then, now we're lamenting that there's no special stars out there willing to do something risky and creative. They've been rewarded for being, average and doing the average playbook. So that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, about like how the reward mechanism would encourage that to happen.
Also, the questions we're asking. Like, I think that, like the mandate for the CMO should be like a bigger question, not so prescriptive. It should be like, we want to grow X% this year on Y budget, which means that like, here's what you've got. And now it's up to the CMO to think about, okay, how do I spend this money to achieve these goals, right? Or this objective, right? And then that encourages them to think for themselves. They're like, do I put this into a brand program, a search program, a pay program, likely a combination of them, right? And so, as if they're asked that open question, they're going to their team and saying, hey, we need to figure out what the right marketing mix is to achieve this objective. Let's do some research in these different areas and then work together to come up with a hypothesis. And so now even their direct reports are being asked a more like open and sophisticated question that invites creativity. It doesn't say like, go put together a search strategy for me, or, go, find a paid media agency for us or whatever. That's obviously like never going to happen. So I feel stupid even saying it, but I'm like,
No, I always go back, and I've said this before, but it's like the term is don't kill your darlings, right? It's not like kill your, shitty kids. It's like kill your darlings. Like, not that we would kill shitty kids, but
or
you know
any
what I mean?
kids.
Like the term is like it's hard to do that if you have a legacy blog program, if you have a legacy link building program, if you have somebody in seat to do SEO and to do this. I think it is really brave but risky to say we're going to start from a blank sheet of paper with that, to Devin's point, with that really top level objective, and let's think about how the world is exactly in this moment and where we think it's going to go and figure out how to market right now versus, oh, I can take that budget and I know I already spend this amount on these programs and let me carve out a little bit for experimentation, maybe if I have some left over. Like it's the two ways of thinking of like either blank page. And actually at OpenView, we did this exercise every time that we would do goal planning. We would start from scratch, right? Like we would look at our existing goals and say, do we want to turn them into what we called, I forget now even what we called them, but there were some goals that we had to make the determination of either we kill them or we turn them into like, oh, this is working, so we're going to continue to like grow it and we're going to optimize, versus like what are our net new brand new goals. And everything was on the table. Like every resource, every whatever could get wiped off if you decided that that was the proposal you wanted to make. And I think that blank page of like, let's just start not thinking about what we have right now, but where, if I was going to build it today from scratch, what would that look like, is a really, really good thought exercise.
Yeah. Wait a second, George. I want to get to this one thing because this was I feel like this is a good, like, tangible example we can share. Because you just launched something called GrowthWaves. It's something. It's a newsletter, but like, well, it's more than a newsletter. Anyway, you can explain it. But the reason why I bring it up is I'm like, that's a really good example of an experiment that is both a brand experiment, but with foundational components around like capturing your, the people in your orbit and building a relationship with them. So it felt like one of those examples of like doing brand, but still having a way to talk about it like tangibly, and there's an alternative revenue source attached to it. So I almost forgot to ask you about this. I'm so glad I remember, but like, can you share a little bit about that and kind of, because I think you just launched it, so maybe like.
So yeah, I launched GrowthWaves as a free newsletter with 2 issues per month, bi-weekly, in September of 2023, and my goal was to launch it as a free newsletter, and then at some point launch a paid version for it, right? And so we got to, right now we have around 2,300 subs. It's not like Lenny's newsletter or anything, but I focus on like what can I learn from it, and also what's the perception it can create, and whether or not it can be turned into a self-sustaining business, right? So around 2,300 subs, and we launched the pro version, which is a paid version of it, 3 weeks ago. And we already have paid members coming in, which is a great feeling for me as an agency owner to see that you can sell without having to be present and prepare a pitch deck for 4 hours only to see the prospect go radio silent after you share the presentation with them. It's a great feeling. And we also have brand deals coming in. So we do sponsorships and whatnot, and we want to expand that. It hasn't yet got to the point of breaking even, but I think that we are in the right direction, and we will keep pushing forward, right? But as you said, I mean, it's something like that can be good in many different levels, because I know that, first of all, our clients are in there and they see the content we produce, right? And this forms a perception over like what we do, and the fact that we are always updated and see what's out there, and in a way, we will try to get some of these learnings and apply to the work we do for you. Also, obviously, audience expansion, but at the same time, full transparency, though I haven't seen that yet. Further down the line, I would expect that to be a lead generation play for Minutia, for the agency. Even though, once again, we haven't generated any business from it yet, right? But I see the emails in there, and some of them could easily be Minutia clients, right? We could definitely help them. So I think it helps in many different levels. It's a standalone entity, and we also took the difficult route of creating the mechanism, for payments and everything, without being reliant on a tool like Substack, which would have been way easier and cost efficient for sure. But I just wanted to experiment with it and see how it's like building your own quote unquote, or maybe info quote unquote product. So we did it, and yeah.
You're muted.
This is what I thought was so clever about it, is like, even if it pays for, like, even if it breaks even and pays for itself, it becomes a free marketing tool for the agency. And I'm like, this to me feels like exactly what adaptive, like this concept of adaptive content marketing is all about, is like, you're coming, like it accomplishes multiple things at the same time. And because you've spent the time to build it, and then, introduce this paid pro version, it's like, now you've just got a free marketing engine that you can tweak over time to see how you can use it. But if not, it's happening and paying for itself. So,
or if it starts being a revenue stream, your marketing, like the ROI of your marketing program is actually higher than, just the leads it brings in.
Yeah. Okay, wait, we should end because it's almost time to go.
Well, it goes without saying, if there's any questions that folks have that are joining us, feel free to slap them in there and we'll try to.
I feel like I don't see LinkedIn questions anymore. And I think that's part of my inability to use technology and the internet. Just kidding. I really get
always something.
Yeah. Also, summer's coming. So if you have questions later, we can answer them with George in a bonus episode.
Wait, what were you saying? Summer's coming?
We're going to be off. We're going to be on break. So
yes. But I thought you were just like, yo, it's summer. Well, I don't know. I couldn't understand the correlation, but
listen,
don't worry about me. I'm doing great.
I'm really tired. And
summer is coming.
So much pollen in Boston that I feel like I'm dead.
Yeah. Wait, you're not in Boston right now?
I was yesterday.
Oh, thanks for telling me.
I was there for 30.
I think you did tell me that you were coming but couldn't see me because you were too busy.
Exactly. Also, I was in Needham.
Yeah, I've been to Needham.
It's not that exciting. George travels the world with his family, like, as he runs a business, multiple businesses. So if you ever saw Needham, you would be like, get me the fuck out of here. This is like the worst of the worst. Like, it's not even cute. It's like, oh no, it's cute. Anyway, it's a suburb. I hate suburbs.
I don't think the other stuff is going to get you canceled. I feel like you shitting on Needham right now might get you canceled.
Maybe. It is cute. It's just, it's my hometown, so it's boring. Okay, everybody, that is a wrap. Thank you. This is one of our last episodes. I think we have one more after this.
Yep.
And then we're done for the summer.
But we'll be popping up and doing stuff. So don't worry.
Things are coming.
You won't have time without our sweet, sweet voices.
We're still going to be here doing weird stuff. I don't know what it is yet. Thank you, George. It was so good to see you. Enjoy London. We will see you all later. You're all doing, for the most part, great.
I'll opt myself out of that one this week, but
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.